At this hour, Houston police are looking for this man right here. They say he shot and killed a woman at a kid's birthday party earlier this week.
27-year-old Jalin Foreman is being charged with murder. Here's what we know so far. HPD tells us a family was throwing a birthday party for a child when Foreman, the child's alleged father, showed up on the doorstep, started arguing, then allegedly pulled out a gun and started firing multiple shots. A woman who police say is the mother was hit and pronounced dead on the scene. Officers say the suspect got away in a white Chevy Tahoe. If you have any information on where Foreman might be, you're asked to call HPD.
At 8:35 p.m. on September 12, 2024, a man identified as Jalin J. Foreman pulled up in a white Chevrolet Tahoe to a modest townhouse on Locksley Road, where children's birthday balloons still drifted in the evening air. Inside, a 6-year-old's birthday party was underway for his child. Moments after he left a small gift at the door, everything changed. Gunfire erupted. The mother, Jalen Whitlock, 25, collapsed in the doorway. The celebration turned into a nightmare. Witnesses called 911. By the time officers arrived, she was dead. Foreman turned himself in 4 days later, and murder charges were filed. But as investigators sifted through evidence, surveillance footage, ballistic data, witness statements, the case began to fracture. More weapons. More questions. What first looked like a straightforward act of rage could be anything but. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people. Real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's begin. Jalen Whitlock was 25 years old at the time of her death. She was a mother of 2 children, a 6-year-old who was a central figure in the birthday party where the incident occurred, and a younger child whose age has not been publicly specified. Jalen's life revolved around her children, and her role as a mother was central to her daily routines and responsibilities. Beyond this, publicly available information regarding her upbringing, education, work, or social life is limited. This lack of detail leaves gaps in understanding her personal background, relationships outside the immediate family, and aspects of her personality that may have influenced her interactions with others, including her ex-partner. Jalin co-parented her children with her ex-partner, who was the father of both children. At the time of the incident, she was in a relationship with a new partner. The birthday party in question was organized by Jalin and her new partner and explicitly excluded the ex-partner. This exclusion provides context for the interactions that followed, as the party represented an environment controlled by Jalin and her household at the time. The arrangement indicates that while she maintained co-parenting responsibilities, she also exercised agency in managing social events and household boundaries. Limited details about her personal life highlight opportunities for reconstructing her life through interviews with family members, friends, or neighbors. Jalin and her ex-partner maintained a shared custody arrangement for their children. Documentation and police records indicate prior involvement with law enforcement in relation to custody-related disputes. These previous interactions suggest that the relationship between Jalin and her ex-partner was marked by volatility, and that disagreements over custody or parental authority had been significant enough to require police attention. These details provide a framework for understanding the tensions that could arise when the ex-partner appeared uninvited at the birthday party. The arrival of the ex-partner at the party, unannounced and without permission, represents a clear point of potential conflict. His presence introduced a variable that was not controlled by Jalin or her new partner and created a situation in which boundaries were being challenged. The existence of a new partner in Jalen's life likely intensified the potential for resentment or jealousy from the ex-partner, further increasing the likelihood of confrontation. The combination of co-parenting volatility and interpersonal tension created conditions conducive to escalation. Investigative focus in this phase should include examining the history of custody conflicts, any prior threats, or reports of domestic incidents. Communication records between Jalin and her ex-partner in the days leading up to the event would also be relevant. Text messages, emails, or social media interactions could clarify whether any warnings or arguments preceded the confrontation. This step is critical in reconstructing the relationship dynamics and assessing factors that may have contributed to the chain of events leading to the shooting. The events of the evening followed a sequence that can be reconstructed from witness accounts and initial reports. The ex-partner arrived at the townhouse in a white SUV. He claimed his purpose was to drop off gifts for his children, but his presence was unwelcome by Jalin and her household. This initial arrival immediately created tension. A confrontation ensued when the ex-partner exchanged words with Jalen's boyfriend. Children were present during this interaction, witnessing the disagreement. The presence of multiple adults in a tense confrontation, combined with the visibility to minors, heightened the stakes and increased the complexity of the situation. During the course of this confrontation, the ex-partner reportedly left the immediate area to retrieve a firearm from his vehicle. At the same time, the boyfriend may have armed himself, indicating that multiple firearms were present during the incident. This detail is significant, as it establishes that the confrontation had the potential to escalate rapidly into a violent exchange. Following the retrieval of firearms, gunfire was reported at the townhouse. Multiple shots were fired, with at least one striking Jalin. Reports indicate that she attempted to confront or resist, making verbal statements during the incident. The specifics of her words or actions remain limited to witness accounts, but they suggest that she engaged directly with the threat rather than withdrawing. Jalin was struck by a bullet during the shooting and collapsed. Emergency responders arrived at the scene shortly thereafter and pronounced her dead.
The search continues for the man accused of shooting and killing his ex-girlfriend at their kid's birthday party. Right now, investigators say Jalin Foreman has been charged with murder, but he's still not in custody. Devon Roming joins us live downtown this morning outside HPD headquarters. Devon, what's the latest in this case?
Well, Ron, we're learning a lot from newly released court documents. These court documents outline what actually took place in the moments leading up to the shooting that left Foreman's ex-girlfriend dead. Now, according to court documents, a witness told investigators Foreman was showing up to drop off birthday gifts for his daughter, but he allegedly wasn't allowed to. Witnesses at the party say Foreman was yelling outside the house before shooting at the home off Locksley Road about 5 times. Court documents also reveal Foreman left the scene in a white Chevy Tahoe, but then moments later came back to the scene yelling things like, "We're going to end this now," and "I will reload, come outside, let's finish this." His ex-girlfriend, 25-year-old Jalen Whitlock, was shot in the face in front of her 2 kids and new boyfriend. She died from her injuries at the scene. Now, Houston police say they responded to child custody calls in the past at the home. Foreman and his ex-girlfriend had 2 children together. Right now, Houston police are asking anyone with information about Foreman's whereabouts that could lead to an arrest to call them. Live in downtown Houston, Devon Roming, KHOU 11 News.
The timing of medical response, the number of shots fired, and the trajectory of the gunfire are all critical for understanding the mechanics of the incident, though detailed forensic reports are not publicly available at this stage. After the shooting, the ex-partner fled in his SUV. A 911 call was placed, prompting law enforcement to respond to the scene. Children and other witnesses provided initial statements, which contributed to the identification of potential suspects and the reconstruction of events. These accounts form the primary narrative for investigators to determine sequence, responsibility, and involvement of each individual present. The incident raises multiple investigative considerations. The presence of multiple firearms suggests that escalation could have occurred rapidly and in unpredictable ways. The pre-existing volatility in the co-parenting relationship adds context to why the ex-partner might have arrived uninvited. Communication history, custody disputes, and prior police involvement are all relevant in understanding the chain of causation leading to the fatal event. Reconstructing the timeline is essential for clarity. The sequence from arrival, confrontation, gun retrieval, to shooting and subsequent flight forms the backbone of the investigation. Establishing the origin of each gunshot, identifying the shooter, and analyzing witness accounts are necessary steps for legal clarity. The role of children as witnesses, while not direct participants, adds complexity regarding psychological impact and potential testimony. Law enforcement response, emergency medical intervention, and initial witness statements all contribute to the official narrative. Understanding the actions and timing of each party involved, alongside physical evidence, will be central to determining responsibility and accountability. Following the fatal incident at the birthday party, law enforcement quickly initiated procedures to secure the scene, collect evidence, and identify potential suspects. The ex-partner involved in the incident surrendered to authorities shortly after shooting. Upon surrender, he was formally charged with murder. Standard procedure included a formal arraignment in which the charges were read and legal counsel was assigned. A bond was set in accordance with state guidelines, reflecting both the severity of the initial charge and the circumstances of the incident. This arrest marked the beginning of the legal process and set the stage for subsequent investigative and judicial developments. The immediate aftermath drew widespread attention from media outlets. Reports consistently highlighted the context of the incident, emphasizing that the shooting occurred during a child's birthday party. Coverage detailed the presence of children and family members, the sequence of events leading to the shooting, and the identification of the ex-partner as the initial suspect. Local news outlets documented police statements, public reactions, and official records, providing factual accounts without speculation. Community response included both public shock and organized efforts to support the surviving children. Fundraising initiatives were established to address immediate financial needs, including care and custody arrangements for the children affected by the loss of their mother. These efforts reflected community recognition of the incident's direct impact on minors and the broader family unit. Early media narratives framed the case primarily as a domestic violence incident, underscoring the risks associated with unresolved co-parenting conflicts. Reports highlighted how interactions between former partners, coupled with ongoing custody arrangements and personal disputes, contributed to the escalation that culminated in a fatal outcome. The presence of firearms in the domestic setting was identified as a critical factor, illustrating how access to weapons during interpersonal conflict can increase the likelihood of serious injury or death. The initial narrative established a foundation for public understanding of the case, while setting up legal and investigative scrutiny. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement and prosecutorial authorities reviewed forensic evidence, witness statements, and scene documentation. Early legal filings indicated that murder charges against the ex-partner were later downgraded to lesser offenses, including deadly conduct and tampering with evidence. This shift reflected evolving conclusions regarding the source of the fatal shot and the specific legal responsibilities of those present. The change in charges illustrated the complexities inherent in cases involving multiple potential shooters, conflicting accounts, and situational ambiguity. Legal authorities emphasized that these adjustments were based on a combination of forensic analysis, witness corroboration, and procedural review. The investigation introduced a significant development when forensic evidence indicated that the fatal shot may have originated from a firearm possessed by Jalen Whitlock's boyfriend, who was present during the incident. This finding complicated the narrative and redirected some focus from the ex-partner to another adult participant. Pending or under-review charges against the boyfriend further introduced uncertainty regarding accountability, as legal determinations had to consider factors such as intent, self-defense, and proportional response. The shift in investigative focus demonstrated the importance of ballistic evidence and witness testimony in establishing a precise sequence of events, particularly in situations involving multiple armed individuals. Family perspectives contributed additional layers of complexity to the case. Relatives of Jalen Whitlock maintained that, while the ex-partner may not have fired the fatal shot, his actions were a catalyst that triggered the sequence leading to her death. This viewpoint highlighted questions of moral and legal responsibility, including whether initial provocation or presence constitutes culpability when an event escalates to lethal violence. Discussions among legal analysts and family members also emphasized issues such as self-defense, escalation of conflict, and the role of firearm presence in domestic incidents. These perspectives underscored the need for careful examination of each individual's actions and the broader context in which the shooting occurred. The death of Jalen Whitlock introduced immediate and consequential custody concerns regarding her children. With the mother deceased, the surviving minors required legally sanctioned guardianship, raising questions about the distribution of custody between the ex-partner and maternal relatives. Decisions were contingent upon both statutory frameworks and the findings of ongoing investigations, particularly regarding the culpability of involved adults. Legal proceedings therefore encompass not only criminal liability, but also family law considerations, including interim custody, welfare assessments, and the establishment of protective measures to ensure the safety and stability of the children. Beyond the immediate criminal and familial implications, the case highlighted several broader societal themes. Domestic violence and disputes arising from co-parenting arrangements were identified as primary catalysts for the fatal incident. Analyses indicated that the combination of interpersonal conflict, prior unresolved disputes, and the introduction of firearms created conditions conducive to lethal escalation. The presence of multiple firearms complicated moral and legal determinations of responsibility, particularly in scenarios where the sequence of events involved rapid decision-making under stress. The complexity of these dynamics illustrates the intersection of domestic law, criminal responsibility, and situational ethics. The presence of children who witnessed the shooting added another critical dimension. Research on exposure to domestic violence indicates that minors present during violent incidents are at elevated risk for long-term psychological and behavioral consequences. Legal and social service interventions were therefore necessary to address immediate welfare concerns and to mitigate future trauma. The case prompted review of protocols for safeguarding children in high-risk domestic environments, as well as consideration of support services for families impacted by sudden parental loss. From a legal perspective, the case demonstrated the multifaceted nature of criminal proceedings involving domestic violence, firearms, and conflicting accounts of responsibility. Ballistic evidence, witness testimony, and the sequence of events all inform prosecutorial decision-making and charge determinations. The adjustment of charges, the potential involvement of multiple adult actors, and the ensuing custody implications reflected the need for precise evidentiary standards, careful interpretation of legal statutes, and the integration of family law considerations into criminal proceedings. Finally, the case generated community reflection on broader issues, including gun safety, domestic conflict resolution, and the societal impact of unresolved co-parenting disputes. Public discourse emphasized the intersection of individual responsibility, access to firearms, and systemic factors that can contribute to fatal outcomes. Discussions also highlighted the need for preventive measures, legal reforms, and community awareness initiatives aimed at mitigating risks associated with domestic conflict, particularly in households with children. The case of Jalen Whitlock thus functions as both a legal case study and a social lens through which issues of domestic safety, co-parenting dynamics, and firearm risk are examined. A complete understanding of the events surrounding the death of Jalen Whitlock requires thorough examination of official records, court filings, police reports, and forensic documentation. Police reports are fundamental, detailing the initial 911 calls, statements from witnesses present at the scene, and responses from officers who arrived within minutes of the incident. These reports reconstruct the timeline of events on the evening of the shooting, providing a step-by-step account of the interaction between the ex-partner, Jalin, her boyfriend, and the children. Custody history is equally important, particularly as the events occurred during a child's birthday party, highlighting potential co-parenting tensions. Documentation of custody agreements, visitation schedules, and prior custody disputes establishes context for the ex-partner's presence. It reveals whether he had legal grounds to be at the residence and if prior disputes could have contributed to escalation. Court filings provide insight into charges, legal motions, and bond hearings. Initially, the ex-partner faced murder charges, which were later downgraded to lesser charges, including deadly conduct and tampering with evidence. Detailed review of these filings uncovers the prosecutorial reasoning behind these adjustments, examining evidence submitted, witness statements, and the role of forensic analysis. Ballistic evidence and autopsy reports are critical to determining the source of the fatal shot. Firearms were present in the home during the incident, and forensic analysis can establish which weapon discharged the bullet that killed Jalen. Ballistic reports, if obtained, allow investigators to match bullets with specific firearms and to reconstruct angles, distance, and trajectory. This evidence forms a foundation for determining legal responsibility and assessing claims of self-defense or accidental discharge. Interviews with family members, friends, neighbors, and witnesses provide additional context and clarity to the events leading up to the tragedy. Family members can supply insight into Jalen's daily routines, parenting style, relationships with her ex-partner and current boyfriend, and prior conflicts. Understanding her perspective, her communication patterns, and her interactions with the children allows investigators and storytellers to reconstruct her life beyond the immediate tragedy. Friends and neighbors can provide corroborating statements about prior tensions, interactions with the ex-partner, and patterns of behavior. They can describe previous incidents, such as prior visits, confrontations, or disputes that may have signaled escalating risk. Witness statements are particularly important in domestic violence cases, as they often reveal details not documented in formal police reports. Law enforcement officers and legal authorities involved in the case are sources for procedural insights. They can explain investigative techniques, evidence collection, handling of firearms, and protocols followed during arrests and interrogations. Their perspectives clarify how the legal system approaches complex domestic incidents and how charges are determined or adjusted based on evolving evidence. Surveillance footage from neighboring homes and the residence itself provides visual confirmation of events, timing, and actions by all parties involved. While raw footage may not always be public, a careful description or reconstruction can illustrate movements, sequence of events, and the interaction between the ex-partner, Jalen, and her boyfriend. Photographs of the scene, including the interior and exterior of the home, firearm placements, and positions of individuals, supplement understanding of the environment. These visuals allow investigators to map trajectories, distances, and angles, essential in forensic reconstruction. 911 call transcripts are central to understanding the immediate response and the perception of witnesses during the event. These calls often capture first-hand reactions, timing of gunshots, and the state of children and adults during the incident. Social media posts by Jalen, her ex-partner, or other individuals involved may provide additional context to the relationships and communications leading up to the event. They can reveal disputes, threats, or behaviors that foreshadow the confrontation. Collectively, these multimedia sources offer a comprehensive reconstruction of the incident. To situate the case in a broader societal framework, research into domestic violence patterns, gun violence statistics, and custody disputes is necessary. Domestic violence research highlights the risk factors, escalation patterns, and common outcomes in co-parenting disputes that involve firearms. Statistical analysis demonstrates how often custody conflicts intersect with domestic violence, resulting in injury or death. Gun violence research emphasizes the dangers associated with multiple firearms in a domestic setting, particularly in high-conflict environments. Studies show that accessibility to guns significantly increases the probability of fatalities during confrontations. Custody disputes provide a legal framework for understanding the presence of the ex-partner at the scene and the motivations that drive behavior in contested parenting situations. Examining previous cases where custody conflict escalated to lethal violence reveals patterns of behavior and potential intervention points. Expert commentary on trauma, co-parenting, and legal responsibilities adds interpretive depth to the story. Legal experts can explain nuances of charges, self-defense laws, and evidence thresholds, while psychologists and social workers can provide insight into the trauma experienced by children exposed to parental violence. Their perspectives are integral to explaining both the immediate and long-term consequences of this incident. The story begins with the scene of a child's birthday party. Balloons, cake, presents, and laughter fill the air. The ex-partner's arrival is subtly foreshadowed, creating tension without revealing the impending violence. The audience is introduced to the family dynamics, highlighting normalcy and daily life before the abrupt shift. Detailed exploration of Jalen's life, including her childhood, professional life, social relationships, and role as a mother. This segment reconstructs her personality, values, and daily routines, emphasizing her identity beyond being a victim. This backstory also examines her relationship with her ex-partner, her children, and her current boyfriend, setting the stage for understanding motives and context. The history of custody agreements, previous disputes, and co-parenting challenges is examined. Records show prior police calls related to custody disputes, highlighting tension and potential warning signs. Analysis of these dynamics demonstrates how unresolved conflicts can escalate to violence, particularly when boundaries are crossed or ignored. The sequence of events on the night of the shooting is reconstructed using witness statements, 911 calls, and surveillance footage. The ex-partner arrives at the residence, engages with Jalen's boyfriend, retrieves a firearm, and fires multiple shots. Jalen is struck and collapses. The timeline details every action, reaction, and movement, providing a comprehensive account. Emergency responders arrive. Children are secured, and Jalen is pronounced dead at the scene. The ex-partner flees and later surrenders. Media coverage captures public reaction, highlighting community shock, grief, and moral outrage. Fundraising and support efforts for surviving children are documented, showing immediate social response. Forensic analysis and ballistics introduce complexity. Evidence suggests a fatal shot may have been fired from the boyfriend's weapon. Murder charges against the ex-partner are reduced to lesser charges, raising questions about responsibility and legal interpretation. This twist complicates the narrative and requires careful presentation to maintain factual clarity. The story explores responsibility in domestic shootings involving multiple armed individuals. Self-defense, firearm handling, and escalation of conflict are analyzed. Legal experts interpret charge reductions and procedural decisions, emphasizing the ambiguity of accountability in high-conflict domestic incidents. Focus shifts to the surviving children, the impact of witnessing their mother's death, and custody implications. The story examines how custody decisions are influenced by legal outcomes and public perception. Family grief, adjustment, and support mechanisms are detailed without emotional dramatization, focusing on factual impact and systemic response. Domestic violence, gun access, and co-parenting challenges are explored in broader social context. Statistical comparisons in prior cases situate the incident within national patterns. Expert commentary on prevention, legal intervention, and support structures for families in crisis is included. The story concludes with unresolved questions, legal outcomes, and ongoing custody issues. Reflection on the lessons learned, systemic gaps, and societal implications is provided. Audience is left with an understanding of the multifaceted consequences of a single incident of domestic conflict escalating to fatal violence. Who fired the fatal shot? Ballistic analysis points to multiple possibilities, complicating legal responsibility. Why did the ex-partner arrive uninvited? Examination of motives and prior communications is essential. What prior conflicts or threats existed between Jalen and the ex-partner? Past disputes may reveal escalation patterns. What were the circumstances of firearms present in the home? Ownership, accessibility, and handling are central to understanding the incident. How will custody of the children be resolved? Legal intervention and family input determine short and long-term care. Why were murder charges downgraded? Legal interpretation of evidence, witness statements, and ballistics informs prosecutorial decisions. The case of Jalen Whitlock illustrates the intersection of domestic violence, custody disputes, and gun-related fatalities. The immediate human cost includes loss of life and trauma to children. Legal complexity demonstrates challenges in assigning responsibility when multiple armed parties are involved. Broader societal implications include the dangers of firearms in domestic conflicts, the need for effective co-parenting interventions, and systemic gaps in addressing escalating disputes before tragedy occurs. Examination of records, ballistics, interviews, and multimedia provides a comprehensive reconstruction of the event. The case encourages reflection on morality, justice, and the consequences of single decisions. It emphasizes the importance of preventive measures, legal clarity, and community support structures to mitigate risks associated with domestic conflict and firearms. Ultimately, the story of Jalen Whitlock serves as both a detailed account of a single tragic incident and a broader study of systemic vulnerabilities that contribute to domestic violence fatalities. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.